name is Justin, and this is Heart of the Hustle podcast. On this episode, I am going to introduce you to a man that I've gotten to work with a little bit, but he's now gone and done quite a bit of different things over time. He did work a full-time job. He was very comfortable in the full-time job that he did work at one point in time, and now he is bouncing around doing what he enjoys doing. I don't want to say bouncing around because it's very structured. So, Sam?
Hey, brother.
What's up there, feller? How you doing, bud?
I'm doing good, man. How about yourself?
I'm making it work. One day at a time. That's about it. But what's going on with you? I saw that you have an IMDb. That's kind of a big deal, though.
You know what? I think for me, it definitely was a if nothing more than just a testament to the fact that I've been moving towards the correct path, more or less.
Okay, I like that. I think that it gives a little bit of validation in a sense, is what you're saying. And I know you and I were at one point in time partners, creative digital concepts. Let's shout that out. Hey. Yeah. But we have since kind of done our own things and gone our own way and just kind of figured things out a little bit differently. So how about we start with this? Sam, where are you from? Born and raised.
So I was actually, I'm from Wilmington, Delaware, born and raised in Smyrna and Kent County, Delaware.
And you travel at all? Are you a traveled individual? Would you call yourself more just staying at home?
No. So, definitely earlier on, I traveled a lot, because both my parents, traveled a lot. My, father, he traveled over the road. Prior to me being born, he was a truck driver, and he traveled. He used to say he traveled to, I think it was like 42 or 43 of the continuous United States. So he'd been around there in Canada and Mexico. So he had been traveling. And my mother, she did a lot of traveling. She did a lot of traveling for work, for leisure, and for family. I've been to multiple countries, and and then, like I said, having family overseas, in the Caribbean and then elsewhere, it was kind of like just natural to travel. I think I've been traveling since I was like, that I can remember, I think like 6, so like I've been on planes and traveling. I've been up and down the East Coast, been throughout the Midwest and, on the West Coast and, Asia. Yeah. Never got a chance to go to Europe yet, but, that's
Asia, huh?
Yeah, definitely. Japan a lot, and visit family and friends, and then had an opportunity with a buddy of mine to go to the Philippines. He's Filipino American, and we stayed with his family, and then we stayed with my family, and overseas in Japan. So that was definitely an eye opener in the Philippines, and seeing the world.
So the fact that you were in Japan, does that mean that you can speak Japanese?
Yeah, absolutely.
You actually can. There's this one time where we were celebrating after we got done with a shoot, and we're in the car driving back, and my man just like turns up this song, and he just goes for it. He was just like singing in full-on Japanese. Do you remember what song that was by any chance?
Oh man, I'm trying to think. It might have been the song Bonsai, which is kind of like the literal term is like, live for like 1,000 years or something, but it's usually used in a form of like excitement. It's kind of like a hoorah kind of thing. And the group, if it's the song I think it is, Bonsai is a song created by a group called Ulhus, and it's a group from Osaka, which is like, that's my hometown in Japan, Osaka. The prefecture, and they're from there. So like and it was a famous song in the 90s. So if that's the case, like everybody knows that song, and If that's the one it is,
Nice.
that's my jam.
That's the one. Again, I'm gonna see if I can find it. I know it's somewhere in the cloud, hidden up there, but I'll see if I can interject it because it was very well done. So you grew up a little bit in Osaka. What was that like in comparison to the other places you've been?
Tokyo and Osaka were the two main places that I would travel and, like I said, friends and family. And Osaka for me has always been. I knew somebody who once they were from Japan, but they had explained that they were from a northern part of Japan, and what they had said was, in terms of explaining it like from America, I always think of Tokyo. When I think of Tokyo, I think of New York City. It's got that metropolitan, very city-esque. You can, there's all kinds of stuff to do, and there's so much going on. And I mean, Osaka is not different in the respect that it does have a lot going on. There's a lot to do, but the way that the person had said it was, I think, the best. And they were like, when you think about Tokyo, it's kind of like, you're in New York City. When you think about Osaka, it's got that hometown, kind of like that Georgia feel, that hometown, Atlanta, easygoing, good time. People are, people are a lot more, people are very open, and they're I don't know, just a little bit more relaxed. Like if you go to New York City, and I enjoy New York, but New York is, you're focused, and everybody seems to have somewhere they're going, and there's not a lot of time often to stop and talk to anybody because you're on your way to do something. Whereas, like, if you're somewhere that's considered a little bit more laid back, you kind of get people who are like, hey, how's it going? Or, then they're easy to speak. And it's kind of the same thing in Osaka. It's kind of that kind of vibe. Like, people are, hey, how's it going? So it's definitely
Nice.
a good feeling.
That's nice. So now Japan and China are obviously two different places, but I've been talking to a pen pal. I guess I'm not really sure what to call it these days in the digital world, but I've been de-impaling a guy from China, and he talked about how the food and the culture there is very, very that's like the thing to do is the food and the culture and the beer. And he was like, if you want to really taste beer, I can take you places to taste beer. Is Japan similar in that way?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Food is, I think for any country, the two biggest signs of the culture and the people are your food and your language, and there's so much that can be found and derived from language. That's why so many people, on the side note, are so confused about English. When you talk about, we always, as Americans, Americans are like, oh, these languages are so hard, but we have the hardest language because I remember talking to my son and just speaking like colloquial, right? So we're talking slang. And when I grew up, the word cool meant something that was fun and something that was, in style and everything. And then they switched the word to hot, right? And hot was the word that, meant something was in style and fashionable. But here's the funny thing. Only in English that I'm aware of can there be two words that are complete opposites that mean the same
thing. Actually, to go with that, that is why we started the show Heart of the Hustle, because there's a difference between a hustler, which people have kind of identified or put with someone who tries to take money from someone tries to get something from them for personal gain, right? And then there's somebody who hustles. Now I know what you're speaking is a little bit different, but at the same time, there are two different meanings to the same word. You better hustle before you're late to the bus. You got to hustle in order to get to that point. That means you're a go-getter. That's what people want. But as soon as you hear hustler, it's a whole nother story. So just for a little bit of background here, folks, that's exactly what we're talking about in the English language. Is that just because there's a word for it doesn't mean that's what a person is. So I just want to inject that in there for a moment. Thank you for introducing that. But you're right. It's the hardest language, isn't it? Two words mean the same thing.
Yeah, and they're some complete opposites.
Where do you end up now that you're in Delaware?
For me, Delaware Delaware has always been it's where I live at in Delaware. You know, I'm not a town called Smyrna. You know, growing up they called it Smyrnadelphia because it was like, oh, you know, they wanted to be Philadelphia, but they
Really?
they absolutely were not. You know, so I mean,
That's
we
interesting.
I went to Smyrna High School. We used to have a cornfield in the back of the school. You know, it was which which was cool. I mean, you know, I grew up in a town where everybody went to the same kindergarten, and then there were like three elementary schools, and you went to one of those elementary schools depending on which part of the area you lived in, and then everybody met back up at middle school, and then you either went to the one high school we have, which is Smyrna High School, or you know you went you either moved away or you went to like a polytech, which is a technical high school that's like 23 miles away, or you know some people went north and they would go to like Caravel, which is another school that's north, and they would you know catch a bus, but they had to be um, like accepted to go there. And you know there's a couple other schools like you know Middletown and things that were nearby, but most of the time you went to Smyrna High, or like I said, Polytech. Those were two main ones because of the bus and traveling. But you know, in Smyrna's defense, I mean, they've been you know state champions now multiple times. They just won the state championship again for football.
This is
They've been
true.
state
State
champions.
champions.
You know, yeah, they
They're
were
gonna
state
talk it
champions in
up.
wrestling. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, you know, wrestling. Me growing up, wrestling was the thing that Smyrna was known for. I mean, everybody, you know, that was what they did. That it was like Smyrna was the martial art school of wrestling. You know, it's like, oh, you're from Smyrna. Oh, you know, because we had people who, like I said, we had farms and stuff around too. There were people. I remember a few people when I was going to high school that you know wrestled like pigs and everything else. Like, and I mean,
I'm sorry.
they were state
Did you
champions.
say pigs?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wrestling
Absolutely.
piggy pigs. Like,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, you figure if you're on a farm and you're throwing bales of hay, they had that natural, you know, farmer strength and things like that. And
mm,
I mean, it was a lot of blending too. I mean, that's the thing, you know, that we were used to. You know, we had friends that were, you know, all across the spectrum, and it was just because we all were from Smyrna. You know, just because somebody else lived in the farm and you lived in the town. You know, we were all able to, we were all from Smyrna. So it was just kind of like, oh, you know, it was a nice place. So that small town kind of connection and being able to see people out, you know, even now running the classmates and people I grew up with, you know, at the grocery store who are still around. And, you know, I've known these people for over 20 or 30 years. You know,
wow,
they're all around. So
wow.
it's a good feeling. It's different. I mean, I've traveled. I've lived in Florida. You know what I mean? I've you know spent time up in you know New Jersey and things like that. Especially when my father was living up there, and you know that's I've had an opportunity to be in different places. But one of the things I always liked about Smyrna was just that it's a it's a hometown that you know you feel pretty comfortable. I mean, nowhere is absolutely safe. But you know, for the most part, you pretty much you know what you get, and it's easy going.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Now, there are a few famous people, or a few celebrities that have come out of the Delaware area. Alela, I think it's Elena Dunn. I think she was a basketball player.
Oh, Ella, yeah, Ella Donna, yeah.
Aubrey Plaza, but there's
But yeah, I
some.
mean, and when you talk about famous Delawareans, because that's usually the ones that are people say, oh, you know, Aubrey Plaza and things like that. But you know, and there are more than we realize. But I think so. Like, I don't know if you remember the actor Judge Reinhold who played in Beverly Hills Cop and he played in some other stuff.
Yes,
He was Billy.
yes,
So he's from Delaware. You know, Terry Polo who played in Meet the Parents. She's from
yeah,
Dover.
yeah.
You know, actually went. I used to work with someone who actually went to school with her. You know, there's a director, Ty West, who did the movie X. I think they had like Kid Cudi and a
Oh
bunch of
yeah,
other people
yeah,
in it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
The
he's from Wilmington.
Project X.
Yeah, yeah, he's from Wilmington.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
so I mean, like he's done a few you know films, and he's actually a you know pretty well known original creative director. You know, but He's from Wilmington, So I mean, we have our people, but yeah, coming across him, even though it's a small state, it is the second smallest state in the country.
That's true.
But
That's true.
it's still big enough that you know,
There's still
you don't
some
necessarily come
separation.
across.
How about we talk a little bit about, I mean, the last time you and I worked together, it was on a project called Reverso, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yes, Reverso. How have you gotten to the point now where you're doing film? I mean, did you start in this industry? Why did you gravitate towards film? What led you to gravitate towards it?
So film and even TV narrative work has always been a passion of mine. I've always enjoyed stories. I enjoy the visual aspects of stories and how things are created, and I really enjoy the stories themselves. And so narrative for me was always the end game. It was always like, okay, I want to be able to take an idea, some type of story, and convey that story in a way that connects with people, and whether it just simply entertains or it's a to be able to allow others to gain something out of it. I did music a long time ago, and I never really went too far with it. I had opportunities to go farther with it, but it was one of those things where, as much as I enjoyed music, the act of doing music, it's hip hop.
Tell 'em I'm ready, I'm hitting my stride, let's get to the fetty. I was just sitting back watching them fold. Racks on me now, yeah, it's looking slow. I hold it down and I got my own. Keeping it grown, we back to the bone. Yeah, flying flashy, ayy, ayy. We too fancy, ayy, ayy. Can't walk past me, ayy. Hey, right up your alley, wait, I gotta play it safe. Watch me isolate, watch me isolate, hey, watch me isolate. Whoa. Clear out the room, I'm coming through. They wanna see what I'm about. Yeah, I got skills, do it for the thrill. I'm on a paper route.
I did other stuff, but hip hop is what I did. I was an MC, and I enjoyed being around people and creative people, and had collabed with people from all different music genres, but the idea of that being solely what I did never fully connected with me as just being a music person. Because even when I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll pursue this further, I was still like...
And what do you mean by like a music person? What were you doing in the music industry?
So I mean, I never really got big to the industry. Like there were a few different crews that I ran with. There was music that we were putting out. I had a really good buddy of mine at the time, and this is before K-pop and Korean hip hop had gotten big. But my buddy Shock One, I always call him Tongsan, which is Korean for little brother. He was an amazing beat maker. He was an amazing MC. He was actually originally from South Korea, and he moved to Delaware.
Nice.
And he was just, he was actually younger than me and my rhyming partner at the time. And he was making beats. He was doing all those things. He actually had an opportunity to get signed in Korea, South Korea. But he actually, didn't do it because there were because he wasn't a U.S. citizen yet. He was going to have to go to the military. And he was like, it's a lot that would entail for him, because you have to do mandatory service in South Korea for, I think it's like 3 years. So that was going to throw some stuff off for him. So that's why he never went back. But he actually collabed with a lot of Asian Americans and other artists in the U.S. and help other people launch careers. But I'm saying that because some of the things I was doing with other crews that I was running with, and working with, and I had the opportunity to do stuff. We were performing. We actually performed. I think probably the biggest. We opened for it was a offshoot of the group Insane Clown Posse.
Oh yeah, I remember.
But yeah. So we opened for the group before they came out, but the same place we opened up. Now it's no longer running, but the rapper Noriega was there the week before. So that was kind of like and we also I was on a track where we were at Club Shampoo in Philadelphia, and we were actually supposed to open up for Jin, the rapper. He had the one who had won 106 in park debate, and it
Yes.
ended up being an issue with the thing. So they just ended up playing our tracks throughout the Club Shampoo. So we were playing in Club Shampoo in Philly, but we were supposed to open for Gent. I had a lot of people come out and stuff, and there was an opportunity. A buddy of mine who is a digital ninja. He's a creative um, graphic designer and everything, and does all kinds of stuff. I mean, he's you know, from the East Coast and West Coast doing some really big stuff. He actually, when I first came back to Delaware, when I moved back from Florida, I just got married. And that was kind of like the moment when I was like, okay, you know what? Music is not the thing for me. Because when I came back, he had basically said he had some contacts, and he was like, the producer Diplo was in Philadelphia, and he was like, my buddy's like, hey, you need to move to Philly. He's like, you got to come up, like, like wanted me to move like within the next like couple weeks. And it was like, I can get you working with Diplo. We can work and get you an album put out and stuff like that. And I was like, I just got married, stuff. He's like, his mindset was like, and that's kind of like where it was like, okay, music is not more important to me than family, or
the timing just was not where it was supposed to be. But that's a hard choice to have to make too.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? But it really wasn't. I always thought it was cool. I was like, oh wow, I had a chance to work at Diplo. But it was knowing that, even with film was something I had done, right? So I had done video stuff, and I never thought about it. But I had been using video cameras since middle school, and the stuff that I did was like fun, and I enjoyed it, but I never ever thought about that being my passion. That was kind of like, oh, I enjoy doing this. I loved photography, and I was like, oh, people were like, oh, why don't you do photography full time? And I was like, oh, but it's a hobby. I never wanted something I enjoyed to become a burden. That was my mindset, and it was semi-faulty. But that was my belief, because I was like, oh, if I enjoy doing it, if I have to do it, and I don't want to, I'm gonna destroy that passion
takes
for
the passion
it.
from it, right.
Yeah, so I've learned that's not necessarily, if you do it right, that's not the case. But that was my ignorance at the time. That's an area I needed growth from. So I mean, I ended up going a long roundabout way. My background, I did like Homeland Security and Emergency Management. I did hazmat. I did, the EMT. I was security, critical infrastructure security, EMT patrol officer. I was a safety specialist. I was custodian. Everything. Anything under the sun I did. And that kind of ultimately led me back into video, which was my passion. And so that narrative, back to being able to tell stories, back to being able to connect people with that visual and the music, the aspect of the music that has always been a passion. It took photography, which I loved, music, which I love that. Life is a soundtrack. That's what I always say. And so like taking those aspects and merging them with a moving picture that allows people to see things dynamically. That's what film has done for me. That's where it all kind of comes together. It's the centerpiece, it's where everything connects and converges. It's like a Venn diagram. So that's kind of why I transitioned into narrative stuff and the filmmaking. I mean, I like looking at vlogs, and I like documentaries. I really enjoy documentaries, and all of that I think falls in that same house. And I definitely want to be involved in those things. Not so much the vlogs, but the documentaries and some stories that are true story things. But narrative filmmaking is where I think the creativity, and you can tell a story that has a real basis, but in a way that's entertaining, but also allows people to connect and gain something from that information. So that's pretty much why I think I've gone that route of narrative, and that's become my end game.
Oh, you talk about passion, man. Just the way you spoke about that made me want to like cry for a minute. I was like looking for tissues. Seriously, that was That was really like heartfelt and passionate, especially with the fact that you've bounced around and you've done a lot of different things and you've been a lot of different places. You know, you've found this passion for film that has always just kind of really driven you, even from a young age. You know, that's kind of amazing. And now you've done what? How many projects have you worked on now? I think on IMDb, three projects.
Yeah, so currently, there's the film The Untenable, which we're supposed to be wrapping that up. It was one thing I've learned, especially when dealing with, aspects of the industry, whether you're independent or you're dealing, with Hollywood. In this respect, one of the things I've learned is that, funding and the timetable for large amounts of people, large groups and stakeholders, that kind of dictates how quickly or how slowly things flow around. And I mean, I've been fortunate enough to work with some really good people. Tiante Kelly, who is the producer of The Untenable, Victor Tweedle, who's the writer and producer, and some of the actors, Maya Brown, and Nasir Kelly, Vinny Fazio, there's a slew of other actors, John Lombardi, Gina Cicanti. She's actually very successful designer, interior designer, and business owner, and she's also one of the producers and actresses in the film, one of the main characters. So I mean, all these people. There's more people as well, but just having the opportunity to work with these individuals and really, build something as far as this film, which is an independent film, but has backing by streaming platforms, and it's been a great learning experience, and we developed some really good relationships. And Tiande Kelly, I was saying that before, his background was in music. He was a music rep for at one point in time Michael Jackson, LaFace Records. He's done a lot. He's also worked on films. I think he worked on the Miami Vice film with Michael Mann and things like that. So being able to have these individuals and pick their brains and really grow relationships and become friends over time and be involved in these projects, has meant a lot. And that's also led to other projects. It's another project that's in it's finishing up development. I mean, they've already done the reads for it and everything like that, and they're working on casting and stuff. It's a drama, but it's a very important one, and it also deals with mental health. And it's going to be, I think it has the potential to be a winner, a festival winner, an awards winner. And there's a lot to it. There's a lot of people that are involved in it. And then there's some other things that are actually in the works, in addition to what's already posted. But until those things are finalized and we have the go ahead, the green light, we just kind of keep those a little mum. But I mean, yeah, I've had those projects going on. There's a couple side projects. There's a festival film we're currently working on, and there's some other projects under the belt. The one thing I'm really enjoying right now is I've had an opportunity to really connect with some local Delaware film
Nice. Okay.
personnel.
Very nice.
Yeah, so like a lot of local cinematographers, actors. There's a gentleman by the name of Gary Tucker, a really great guy. He's acted in both on stage and in some films. He was actually in a movie produced in Delaware, I believe in Milford. He's been in some other things, but he also does some of his own stuff. He is a true film buff. I mean, he has movies that he has categorized, and really classics that he has an eclectic style. And I'm waiting because I know we're working towards a project that I think his acting abilities is going to be, really amazing. So that's one of the things I'm looking forward to. But yeah, I mean, that's more or less as far as the projects go. Those are the
ones that you've been
bread
working
and
on.
butter right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've you've gone from, again, doing all these different jobs to now finally living out basically what you've been wanting to do all this time, is being on set. I mean, you said that there's a lot of red tape that has to get cleared when it comes to working in this style of film. But you guys are trying to get to film festivals, obviously. What is the film festival goal for some of these? Where are you hoping to show some of these, at what festivals?
So there is a story, actually. One of probably the main one that I really would like to see in the festival is it's called it's a story. It's more of a drama piece, and it's kind of about relationships and how things that we think are obvious and overt. A lot of times there's more to them and underneath the surface, and so it's the running title on it. I think right now it's like the 55. I believe it's about a bus and a bus route, and two people who connect on this, and that actual there's a couple festivals up and down the East Coast. We're definitely looking at trying to put it into I think it's if they have it, I think it's the Dirty Popcorn Festival.
Oh yeah,
which is
okay.
Yeah. So but also, I mean, and it's we had some connections before. So one of the things we're trying to see, I mean, I think it has the potential to be able to be aired at South by Southwest, but those kind of things are they're hit or miss. So
their goals,
at this
there,
point,
yeah.
that's really but I mean, definitely some local festivals. They have a couple in New York, and they have I think one or two in Baltimore too that we also looking at. One of the first jobs that I took, I had gotten some gear. I was like, oh, okay, I got some Canon, was a Canon SL2 Rebel.
First camera, SL2.
First like actual non-camcorder style camera. First DSLR was a Canon SL2.
Very nice.
And it had the kit lens, the 1855 millimeter kit lens, and I had been studying some cameras and stuff, knowing about ISO and the exposure triangle and the speed, but I think I was having issues with making sure that I was filming for that filmic look, 24
film pro look.
That 24 frames per second. Well, it was 30 frames per second. No, it was 60 frames. It was 60 frames because I had trouble finding. So I started filming at 60 frames per second, and so the positive was that, I mean, the image looked really nice and sharp, which at the time is what I wanted. But the downside was it looked like too real. It didn't give that feeling that I felt like I had a camcorder in my hand, basically. And so so like I'm filming and didn't have any. I don't think I had an audio. I don't think I had a mic at the time. So it was like the scratch audio from the SL2, The
Very nice.
interview, I had it on sticks, so I did have a tripod. Because I love my static shots. I love steady shots. But when I got done, even the interview questions, I had some okay interview questions, but it was nothing towards. I'm trying to think. What was the interview for? It was. Oh, I can't. That's a shame.
Well,
My
it's a
birthday
good
was
sign though. That
Saturday,
means that
and
you've moved from
yeah,
projects to projects. It's a good thing though.
yeah. But my age, I can't remember things. But I do remember when everything was said and done. The person was like, "Oh, this looks really good, thanks." And I'm looking at him like, "This is horrible. Like this is so, it's trashy. The sound." And like I was like, literally, like I felt like there was no skill behind it at all. And one of the things that taught me was, you you have to make sure that you know your tools. You have to make sure that you do some pre-planning. Don't get me wrong, because as our background, we did a lot of run and gun. Even when we planned, it turned into
It
run and gun.
always
So
was run and
it was,
gun. And for those who
yeah, it
don't
was
know,
like,
run and gun means that you make a plan, you got all your equipment, you know where you're going to set up, you know what you're going to shoot, and then it turns out all you're doing is chasing the action around all day
yeah,
long anyway.
it all went out the window. So it's pre-planning gives you a leg up in the fact that you at least have something in your mind, and knowing your tools allows you to transition between things and make changes on the fly without being overwhelmed. I mean, unless you take the time to double check your stuff, which you should always do, your settings, making sure you double check your equipment before you take it out, making sure your batteries are charged, and all those things. Those are things that you really have to do as a professional. But when you have a situation that happens, you learn more from making mistakes than you do from getting things done right, without knowing why you're doing them. So the mistakes that I made helped me to, one, know that even if I had everything on the most basic settings, at least at that point in time, I could still get something okay, something decent. But then number two, by taking the time to prepare and making sure I knew how to utilize my tools, that I could get exactly what I wanted, that was my biggest issue. It wasn't just that I didn't have the right settings and, things kind of didn't go exactly how I wanted, but it was the fact that what I had in my head, what I had planned, because things vary and there's a variation. But when you have an idea in your head and it's totally different than what you had, and it's not because of a better creative choice, but because of a lack of, talent or skill. And I say skill, not talent, because you can have talent but not have skill, which, I feel like I have talent, but I've had to develop my skill a lot because talent is not enough. And because of that, I learned that I need to make sure and double check and know my tools. So knowing your tools of the craft when you know your tool, it doesn't matter if you have the newest tool, because if you've learned your tool and you master your tool, you can utilize that tool more effectively than people who have a bigger, better, shinier thing. So that's kind of like
That's
what
good. That's
it taught
great
me.
advice. Yeah, that's a really, really, really great advice. Knowing your craft, knowing your tool, and having a passion behind it is what really will help you drive and push forward into what you're trying to do next. He's got all kinds of nuggets of. Is this like that Japanese wisdom, bro? Lay it. I love it. And what's interesting here too is, man, you have worked hard to maintain the balance between the family life, this film life, figuring out who you are and your passion for it all. What would be your advice to somebody who's like, I wanna give it a go. I'm afraid to fail. I'm afraid to leave my job. What would you give some advice? What would you say to somebody who's feeling that way?
Well, I would say it's got to be a burning desire. If it's something you want to do, the first thing you got to figure out is it something you would like to do as a hobby, or are you trying to change your your life, you know, with this. And the first thing that I would say is understand that this is not a jump out of whatever you're doing and jumping directly into, you know, this kind of passion. And if you decide that this is something you want to do, if you have a significant other, I definitely say you need to discuss it. I mean, there's a lot of bumps that do happen. There's a lot of uncertainty. And if you're somebody who's single and you're like, hey, I've been in this situation, I've been in this job, and I'm not passionate about this job, and I feel like I'm wasting my time here, and I feel like, life is just kind of moving forward, and I'm stuck. Then that's when that's a great time to reevaluate some things. I'd always say give yourself time. Put some money aside. Like before I left, I'd actually started making sure I stacked up a little nest egg. It carried me through to a certain point. But if you're not able to do that, or there's something that's pressing to where like this is, you're going to lose your mind, and you've got to do this, then just understand that you can't be afraid to fail, because chances are you're going to have some failings out of the gate. And to me, failing is different than failure, right? So failing means that you've attempted something and you didn't have success in that manner, but there's lessons to be learned to move you forward to have success. And if you stop when you have an obstacle or a failure, then you become a failure because you don't go any further. So like, you're going to fail, expect to fail, actually welcome failing, get it out of the way. Don't go purposely fail, but if you're going to have mistakes, you're going to have bumps, there's going to be things that you need to learn, because the worst thing that can happen is you come out of the way and have success right out of the gate. And then when something does go wrong, you don't understand why it went wrong, and you have more trouble trying to figure out where do you go from there. So, if you're going to make that decision, you're going to make that jump, make sure that, one, you're sure you want to do it. Two, you're prepared and understand that there's obstacles and there's going to be difficulty. And then three, treat it as an adventure. That's the biggest thing that you can do. You have to look at it as though, I don't know what's going to happen next, but it's kind of exciting, because a lot of times, people want to have certainty. The reason people stay in day-to-day jobs, even if they don't like them, is because of the certainty that they're going to get paid. That I would actually, say is actually not the truth, because there's plenty of people who work at jobs who are getting laid off, who have really good jobs. Google's laying off people who are making $200,000 a year, and all of a sudden they get a 6-week severance. So their job, even at that level, is not secure. The only job that is secure is if you work for yourself, because I say the same thing all the time. You can be the best worker for somebody else, but if you don't have a hand in how things are operated, then when things are done and decisions are made, you are at the behest of whoever else is in charge. And that could leave you in a situation where you don't have a job. So then, what you thought was safe is not safe. And so when you're in charge of yourself, there is no safety net. So you're required to continuously and consistently produce, but if there's something that comes along or some type of obstacle, you have the ability to change the direction that you go in, and so that's the biggest difference. So like if you decide that this is what you want to do, yeah, that's it. You that's what you have. You have the ability to say, okay, you know what, this direction is not the right way, and change directions.
Even if you feel out of control, you still have that control.
Yes, absolutely. And so if you decide that this is what you want to do, just understand that it's an adventure, understand there's obstacles, and understand that, it takes work and you're going to fail at things. But that doesn't have to be permanent. Children fall down 100 times, 200 times before they walk. So, but they don't stop until they walk.
That's it. Gotta crawl
So,
before you walk. That's it.
absolutely.
Gotta crawl before you walk.
Absolutely.
Well, Sam, that we really appreciate, your words of wisdom and, helping us figure out how to go from at least trying, at least going from the idea that we want to do something to giving it a try and then making it a vision in our mind that this is what we're going to accomplish. And you've gotten to that point. So I guess we'll close out there. Will you have anyone you want to shout out, any businesses or anything like that you want to use for that 15 minutes or that 5 minutes of fame?
I always want to, I definitely want to thank you first and foremost for, having me on, and this is cool. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Definitely, want to shout out all my Delaware creatives. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't give up. We're a small state, but we're getting there. So eventually, we'll have a seat at the table. Shout out my Therapy Entertainment, which is the overarching group that is, been doing the independent work. Definitely want to give a shout out to my buddy, your buddy as well, David Daniel Pierce. He's been a great motivator, and yeah, there's things in the works there. But and overall, just shout out to anybody who's pursuing their passion. That's what it's about, finding your peace and pursuing your passion.
That's it. That is it. Well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, that is our show. This has been Justin. I am your host. This is Heart of the Hustle. This has been my guest, Sam Cooper. Definitely make sure you keep an eye out for some of the things he's working on. I'll make sure that we attach the social medias. This show has been sponsored by Pendel Plumbing, Delaware's finest plumbing. Give them a call at 302-588-9594 for any of your plumbing solution needs. You guys have a good one.